You look in the mirror every morning. It's the first thing you do. You're not fully awake yet, haven't had your coffee, haven't said a word, but you're already looking, checking yourself, making sure you're still you. It's so automatic that you've never really thought about it. You just get up, walk over, and look. But here's the thing, what you see in the mirror isn't just a reflection. According to the people who lived before you, that's your soul. Literally, not metaphorically, your soul, visible, touchable, damageable. And breaking a mirror meant damaging it. That's why it brings 7 years of bad luck. Not because someone made up a scary story, but because the Romans believed the soul renews itself every 7 years. You break a mirror, you damage the soul, and you wait for it to grow back. 7 years. This isn't superstition. It was a theory about human nature that's 2,000 years old. Today, we're going all the way back to the roots, from the first mirror in human history to vampires that don't have a reflection. From Narcissus, who died because of his own reflection, to the evil queen from Snow White asking the mirror who's the fairest. To covered mirrors in a house where someone has passed away. To why you're looking at your reflection right now, and what exactly it is you see there. Let's start at the very beginning, with the first mirror. A human being saw their reflection long before mirrors were ever made. Water, the still surface of a lake or river on a calm day. You lean down to drink, and you see a face. Whose face? For a modern person, the answer is obvious. Your own, a reflection. But put yourself in the shoes of someone seeing this for the first time. Someone who doesn't know the word reflection. Someone who doesn't understand how it works. Someone who just sees, in the water, someone is looking back at them. Someone who looks a lot like them, but isn't them. Because that someone lives down there, under the water, in another world. That was the first explanation humanity came up with for reflections. Not a copy, but a different being. A double. A creature from a parallel world that looks like you but lives on the other side of the surface. And that creature is dangerous. In dozens of folk traditions, the water double is a threat. It can pull you down into its world. It can steal your soul. That's why many cultures had a taboo against looking into water at night. The boundary between worlds gets thinner in the dark, and the double grows stronger. That's why the Greek myth of Narcissus isn't just a story about vanity. It's a warning. Don't stare too long at your double. It will drag you in. But water is an unreliable mirror. Wind comes, and the reflection disappears. A ripple, and the double distorts. People needed something permanent. The first artificial mirrors appeared about 8,000 years ago. They were polished slabs of obsidian, volcanic glass. They were found in excavations in Turkey. 8,000 years ago, someone took a piece of black stone, polished it until it shone, and for the first time, saw their reflection not in water, but on a solid surface. Think about what that meant. The double no longer lives in the water. It lives in stone. It's always with you. Wherever you go, it goes. Whatever you do, it does. It was both mesmerizing and terrifying. Then came mirrors of polished bronze in Egypt, Mesopotamia, China. Then polished silver, then lead. Glass mirrors with a metallic coating appeared in Venice in the 13th century, and that was a revolution. For the first time, the reflection was clear, detailed, almost perfect. And the better the reflection got, the scarier the double became. Because in a blurry bronze reflection, you could convince yourself it was just a trick of the light. But in a Venetian mirror, there was someone looking back. Someone with your face, your eyes, your movements. Someone absolutely real. Who is that someone? In Rome, the answer was very specific. It's your soul. Anima, your life force, your personality, your essence, made visible. The reflection isn't a copy of your body. The reflection is your soul, temporarily made visible. And that's exactly why damaging a mirror meant damaging the soul. But hold on, because here's a question that makes everything more complicated. If the reflection is the soul, then what happens to people who have no reflection? That question led to one of the darkest traditions in the history of mirrors. A tradition you know, but never thought about where it came from. Vampires don't cast reflections in mirrors. Why? That's what the next part is about. along with witches who fear mirrors, the dead whose mirrors are covered in the house, and why all three traditions, vampires, witches, and death, are really saying the same thing. But first, subscribe if you haven't yet, because this story gets a lot darker from here. A vampire doesn't reflect in a mirror. You know this. You've seen it in movies, in books, in TV shows. It's one of the most famous signs of a vampire, right up there with fangs, a hatred of garlic, and a fear of crosses. But you've never stopped to ask why. Why the mirror specifically? Why not the shadow, or a photograph, or a reflection in water? The answer goes straight back to that Roman tradition we talked about. The mirror shows the soul. A vampire is a soulless creature, something that died and whose soul has departed. Only the body remains, a body that moves, talks, acts, but inside, there's nothing that makes a person human. The mirror shows the soul, and sees nothing when it looks at a vampire, because there's nothing to show. This isn't some random detail Bram Stoker made up for his novel Dracula in 1897. It's a very specific logic, built into centuries-old beliefs about the nature of reflection and the nature of the soul. Stoker took a folk belief that soulless beings don't reflect and applied it to vampires, and it worked so powerfully that it became one of the defining features of vampire mythology for the next 100 years. But vampires are just one layer, because the lack of a reflection, or a distorted one, was a sign of unclean spirits long before Stoker. Witches. In medieval European tradition, it was believed that witches either didn't cast a reflection in mirrors, or that their reflection was warped. Not because they had no body, but because their soul was damaged, sold to the devil. And the mirror, which shows the soul, reveals that damage. That's why, in medieval texts on identifying witches, a mirror was sometimes mentioned as a test. Hold up a mirror and see what it shows. It sounds brutal from a modern perspective, but the logic was perfectly consistent within a belief system where the mirror equals the reflection of the soul. And the third layer, the most widespread one, the one that's still alive today, covering the mirrors in a house where someone has died. You've seen this, or heard about it. In Jewish tradition, it's called Shiva, the 7-day mourning period. All mirrors in the house are covered with dark cloth. In Slavic tradition, the same thing. In some Christian traditions, the same thing. Why? There are a few versions, and they all come back to one idea. The soul of the deceased hasn't left yet. It's still here. It's still in this house for a few days after the body dies, and the mirror is dangerous for it. Version 1. The soul might see itself in the mirror and get scared. It doesn't know it's dead yet. It sees its reflection, and it understands. That's too cruel. So mirrors are covered to protect the soul from that knowledge until it's ready to move on. Version 2. The mirror can trap the deceased's soul. Hold it here, not let it leave. The soul reflects in the mirror and gets stuck. That's why some traditions believe that old mirrors house souls, especially if the mirror was in a house where someone died. Version 3 is the darkest. The deceased soul wanders the house. If a living person looks into a mirror and sees the reflection of the dead next to them, that's a sign of death. The one who saw it will be next to die, so mirrors are covered to keep the living from accidentally seeing the dead next to them. 3 versions, 1 logic. The mirror shows what is, including what we'd rather not see. And here's the remarkable thing. The tradition of covering mirrors during mourning still exists today, in the 21st century, in the homes of people who use smartphones and believe in science. Something about this tradition turned out to be stronger than rationalism. What exactly? The same thing that keeps all these traditions alive. Not a belief in the literal meaning, but the feeling that a mirror is a boundary, that there's something on the other side of that surface, that a reflection isn't just a copy. Now about the 7 years, because we talked about it at the very beginning, and it's time to break down where that specific number came from. Rome, 1st century AD. The Romans believed that the human body completely renews itself every 7 years. Every cell, every bone, every hair, all new. The person you were 7 years ago literally no longer exists in a physical sense, and the soul, the anima, renews along with the body. Every 7 years, it becomes new. Previous damage disappears. Previous sins are washed away. A person starts over. This wasn't just a folk superstition. It was a philosophical concept about the cyclical nature of life, the possibility of renewal, that nothing is eternal, including misfortune. And that's exactly why a broken mirror meant 7 years of bad luck. Not an arbitrary number, but a specific term. The time the soul needs to regrow after being damaged. You damaged your reflection, your soul, by breaking the mirror. Now wait for the renewal cycle. 7 years. Then, a clean slate. There's something almost comforting in that logic. Misfortunes aren't eternal. They have a term. 7 years, and everything starts over. But there's more to the number 7 that makes this story richer. 7 isn't just the Roman renewal cycle. It's a sacred number that appears in all the great traditions at once. 7 days of the week, 7 notes in a musical scale, 7 colors of the rainbow, 7 deadly sins, 7 wonders of the world, 7 heavens in Islamic tradition, 7 days of creation in Christianity, 7 sacred rivers in Hinduism. Why 7? Because ancient people watched the sky, and they saw 7 celestial bodies that moved against the fixed stars: the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. 7 planets by the understanding of the time, 7 forces that govern the world. 7 became the number of wholeness, the number of a completed cycle, the number that means everything has passed through all stages and returned to the beginning. And when the Romans were looking for a time frame to heal a damaged soul, they picked that number. 7 years, a full cycle, after which everything starts over. So that's where the 7 years of bad luck comes from. Not superstition, it's astronomy, it's philosophy. It's a very concrete understanding of how time works. But the story of the mirror isn't over yet, because there are 2 figures you've known since childhood, and they both say the same thing, that the mirror shows the truth you don't always want to see. Narcissus, and the evil queen from Snow White. That's in the final part. And also, what exactly you see when you look in the mirror every morning, and why it matters more than you think. Narcissus, you know the story. A beautiful young man who saw his reflection in the water and fell in love, couldn't tear himself away, kept staring and staring until he died. We use his name as a synonym for vanity. A narcissist is someone who loves themselves too much. It's a psychological term, narcissism. It's the accusation thrown at people who take too many selfies or talk about themselves too often. But the Greek myth? It's not about vanity. It's about something much darker. Narcissus didn't know he was looking at himself. In the original version of the myth, in Ovid's Metamorphoses, Narcissus looks into the water and sees a beautiful being, a stranger. He doesn't understand it's his reflection. He thinks it's someone else. He reaches out. The being reaches out. He smiles. It smiles. He leans in for a kiss. The water rips the image apart, over and over, endlessly. He can't touch what he sees, can't connect with it, can't understand why it always slips away, and he dies from that impossibility. Not from vanity, from the impossibility of reaching his own reflection. What does that mean? It means Narcissus didn't know himself. He looked at himself and didn't recognize it. He saw something beautiful and didn't realize it was him. The myth of Narcissus isn't a warning about self-love. It's a warning about not knowing yourself, about how dangerous it is to look into a reflection and not understand what's there. And in that sense, the mirror isn't just glass with a metal coating. It's a tool for self-knowledge, a dangerous tool. Because what you see depends on who's looking. Narcissus saw a beautiful stranger, and it killed him. And what do you see? Now the evil queen. The story of Snow White was written down by the Brothers Grimm in 1812, but its roots go much deeper, into folk tales about mirrors that speak the truth, mirrors that can't be fooled, that see what's hidden. Every day, the evil queen walks up to the mirror and asks one question: who is the fairest of them all? And the mirror answers, honestly, without flattery, without fear. The mirror in this story is the only character who doesn't lie. Everyone else lies. The servants tell the queen what she wants to hear. The huntsman doesn't carry out the order. The dwarves hide Snow White. The prince shows up at just the right moment. Everyone manipulates, everyone conceals, everyone has their own agenda. Only the mirror tells the truth. And that's exactly why it's dangerous. Because the truth it tells isn't the truth the queen wants to hear. The mirror says, "You're aging, you're no longer the fairest. There's someone younger and more beautiful." And that destroys the queen. It wasn't Snow White that destroyed her, not the prince, not the dwarves, the mirror that told the truth. That's the heart of all mirror superstitions. The mirror shows what is, not what you want to see, not what flatters you, not what comforts you, what is. And people, all people, across all cultures, throughout all time, have instinctively felt this. Felt that there's something in the mirror that sees deeper than the surface, something that knows more than you'd like it to know. That's where the fear of breaking a mirror comes from. That's why mirrors get covered during mourning. That's why vampires have no reflection. That's why witches have distorted reflections. That's why Narcissus didn't recognize himself. That's why the evil queen was driven mad by the truth the mirror told her. All these stories are about the same thing, that the mirror is a boundary between the way you see yourself and the way you really are. Now let's come back to you. You look in the mirror every morning. You see your face. You check your hair. You assess your expression. You decide whether you're satisfied with what you see. But what exactly are you checking? Not your appearance. Appearance is just the surface. Underneath that check is something else. You're checking yourself, making sure you're still you, that nothing changed overnight, that the person you see in the mirror is the person you want to be. That's exactly what people were doing thousands of years ago when they leaned over the water and saw their double. They weren't looking for a reflection. They were looking for themselves. And that search, it never ends. Because what you see in the mirror is always a little off. A little older than you expected. A little more tired. A little different from the person in your head. Narcissus couldn't reach his reflection, and he died from that impossibility. The evil queen couldn't accept the truth her reflection showed her, and it drove her insane. Every morning, you look in the mirror, and you see the gap between who you are and who you want to be. The mirror shows that gap, always, without exception. It's not a curse, it's a function. The mirror was the first tool of self-knowledge in human history. Long before psychology, before philosophy, before meditation, there was the mirror, a tool that let a person see themselves from the outside, to see yourself the way another person sees you. And this tool was terrifying, because what it showed, you didn't always like. Breaking the mirror meant rejecting that knowledge, destroying the tool that shows the truth. And people believed there would be a price to pay for that. 7 years, while the soul grows back and is ready to face the truth again. Next time you get up in the morning and walk up to the mirror, stop for a second. Don't rush. Look. Not at your hair, not at your wrinkles, not at whether you like yourself today. Look at the person looking back at you from in there, at the one who's there, on the other side of the glass, at your double who has 8,000 years of history behind them. Ask yourself, do you know who that is? Narcissus didn't, and it killed him. The evil queen knew, but she didn't accept it, and it drove her insane. And you? If this video changed anything about how you see the most ordinary object in your home, hit like. That's a signal that this is worth continuing, because there are so many of these objects around you. Each one has its own story, long, dark, and in the end, always about you. In the next video, the black cat. You know it's bad luck if one crosses your path, but you don't know that in Egypt, killing a cat was punishable by death. That in the Middle Ages, cats were burned along with witches. That in Japan, a black cat is still considered lucky. And that one pope in the 13th century issued a decree that turned the animal into a symbol of the devil, and it changed the fate of millions of cats for centuries. See you then.